Shalom. I would like to discuss the development of Yehuda as a leader. In the beginning of Parshat Vayigash, we have a confrontation which was orchestrated by Yosef, a confrontation between Yosef and Yehuda over the fate of Binyamin. Yosef has orchestrated this confrontation. He clearly at this point feels that he has the upper hand, but he's caught off guard. He caves in to Yehuda. So what happened? So let's look into what Yosef expected of Yehuda. The last time Yosef met Yehuda, was in contact with Yehuda, was when the brothers had been contemplating murdering Yosef and casting him away. And Yehuda stepped in and said, Ma betza ki naroget achinu. What do we stand to gain by murdering our brother? Let us sell him to the Ishmaelim. So Yosef knows Yehuda as someone who compromises, who perhaps evaluates the situation, thinks about what the various possibilities might be, and is willing to compromise, on the right thing to do, is willing to compromise the safety of someone who's defenseless. Yehuda is remembered by Yosef as someone who is weak, as someone who lacks principle, who lacks courage, who is afraid to stand up in order to do the right thing. Now, a little bit more about Yehuda's character, which Yosef was not privy to, but which is consistent with this view of Yehuda. And that is the story that we have about Yehuda and Tamar. Yehuda disregards and neglects Tamar. He does not live up to his responsibility. He sort of lets things go there, lets the events unfold by themselves, sends her away with some loose promise about calling her back at the right time with no intention of fulfilling the promise. So that is a very serious character flaw that Yehuda exhibits, let's say, at the beginning of his political career, or at the beginning of when we get to know him as someone who nonetheless is the dominant among the brothers. Now, going back to the sale of Yosef. Now, we can have, even though we can be very non-forgiving of Yehuda over the sale of Yosef, we can sympathize, I think, because Yehuda is faced with a very difficult choice. Let's say that his motivation may really be to entirely save Yosef and to return him to his father. That motivation, which is attributed to Reuven. And Yehuda, let's say, is a partner to that motivation. But he realizes that the brothers are so enveloped by hatred of Yosef that proposing to the brothers just to return Yosef to Yaakov, to their father, would be a non-starter. It wouldn't work. So in a sense, he's being responsible by doing and taking a path which is, in his evaluation, the best that he can do. Now, despite this evaluation, I'm evaluating Yehuda in a generous way here. Chazal, our sages, are very, very critical of Yehuda. They go so far as to say, he who praises Yehuda for this type of political compromise, he who praises Yehuda is equivalent to blasphemy. Botzea berech ne'atz Hashem. He who praises the compromiser is a blasphemer. So Chazal thought that Yehuda could do much better, but let's not judge Yehuda so harshly. But nonetheless, what changed? What changed in between the time that Yehuda sold Yosef into slavery and the time that Yehuda neglected Tamar, to the Yehuda who catches Yosef off guard in this confrontation, so that ultimately it is Yosef who capitulates to Yehuda, who can no longer remain in control. V'lo yachol Yosef lehitapek. He could no longer remain in control, and he's overwhelmed by Yehuda. So what changed? I think it is embedded in the story of Yehuda and Tamar. Yehuda, when Tamar finally appeals to him and she is being taken out to be burned, this is a woman, a Canaanite woman, who is defenseless, who needs him to publicly acknowledge his part in what happened. His uncompromising defense and vindication of Tamar strengthened the metal of his character. He protected a defenseless outsider, a Canaanite woman, and he did this facing public shaming for what he did and for his behavior. This is the key to what allowed Yehuda to stand up to Yosef and defend Binyamin, the youngest brother who was also defenseless. And this is the key to why Yehuda ultimately becomes the leader and the father of David, which is connected, of course, to the Messiah. Living up to responsibility, he had a responsibility towards Tamar, which he avoided. But ultimately, he understood that living up to his responsibility towards someone who is defenseless, that is what strengthened him and formed him as a leader. And I pray that we should merit such leaders today. Shabbat Shalom.